Okay, I think I'll maybe get started with my introductory piece and then we can move forward. So as many of you will be aware, the City of Stratford and the Ontario Restaurant, Hotel and Motel Association have partnered together to bring this session forward for accommodators to help them better understand the implementation piece of the Municipal Accommodation Tax. The main purpose of this session is to answer any questions that you might have regarding the administration processes that directly affect the accommodators in collecting and remitting the tax. This session is being recorded and will be posted to the city's website and social media for those who could not attend. The question and answer, the Q&A box is in the call to type in questions. So we ask that you please use that feature where possible. If you aren't able to access the Q&A, please use the raise hand feature and we will permit you to speak out loud to answer your question. If for whatever reason you still have questions afterwards or something comes up after the fact, or we need to defer something offline, we are happy to do that and answer any questions that you have throughout any of this process. Before we get started, I wanted to introduce a couple of people here, just point out that for those of you who don't know, I'm Carmen Kruger, the Director of Corporate Services and the Treasurer for the city. I oversee basically anything financial. Financial division is responsible for administering and dispersing of any funds as directed by council. So we're here, myself and Samantha Day, the Manager of Revenue and Taxation, for the administration piece on the financial side. I've also will point out that Jonathan DeWeird from our building division is also with us just to listen in and provide comment if needed. And I've got Chris Bantock here, who's from our clerks division, who's helping me run the meeting online. And in addition to that, we've got Zach Gribble here from Destination Stratford. And I've got Sanju Abraham from the Ontario Restaurant, Hotel and Motel Association, representing the organization, who will help us implement the bylaw and track the data and collect the appropriate municipal accommodation tax and then remit it to the city. So Sanju will be providing a very brief demonstration of how information is to be reported to ORHMA and how the accommodators can remit funds collected. Then once we've gone through that, we'll open up the floor for any questions. And if there are any questions, as I said, not relating to the administration or questions we can't answer right away, we will definitely respond after the session. So at this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Sanju Abraham from Ontario Restaurant, Hotel and Motel Association.
Thank you, Carmen, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sanju Abraham. I'm with the Ontario Restaurant, Hotel and Motel Association. My position here is the Financial Controller. And at the moment, we administer the Municipal Accommodation Tax for about 20 jurisdictions. East, we have City of Peterborough, all the way to the west to the border of Manitoba, Red Lake, and Dryden, City of Dryden. And today I'm attending to answer any of your specific questions in terms of implementation, general questions, operation, setup of the systems. And I do have one small form to present. These are the data that we collect on a monthly, quarterly basis, depending on the locations, the short-term rental or hotels, motels. And I would like to present that to you, and I will open up the group under the direction of Carmen to accept questions, and I can provide the answers today, or if those questions, if I'm not able to provide the answers today, then we will take that note and get back to you. Carmen?
So do you have a screen sharing feature that you would like to do, Sanju? Okay, so Chris, I might ask you to help me with that.
I have the ability to share the screen.
Perfect.
Can any one of you confirm that you're able to see the form? Excellent. So City of Stratford, I'm using this in an Excel spreadsheet, but by the time we get to the actual submission, this will be an online form. Everyone, every stakeholders will receive an invitation through their email address, so you can log in and set up your own profile, plus provide data on a monthly basis. So we identify the name of the establishment. In this example, I'm just using Holiday and Suites as a name. And July 2023, again, using a month as an example. Rooms revenue, So these are the data points that we collect. The total accommodation revenue for the month, and that's section A. B, number of rooms available for the month. So in this case, July, if you have a location with 135 room nights available each night, 135 multiplied by 31 days in July. And the number of rooms sold, occupied for the month. In this case, it's 85% of the 4185. Again, numbers are for demonstration purposes here. And there are room stays that are exempt from charging MAT. For example, any stays over 30 days, a guest stays continuously, they are exempt from the municipal accommodation tax. If the City of Stratford rents a room or a block of rooms from any of your facilities for shelter refuge purposes, they are exempt from the MAT. And any rooms paid prior to the effective date of MAT is deemed, that transaction is deemed complete, therefore they're exempt from the MAT. So I'm using the example here, giving you $25,000 the total number, total revenue generated by those guests who stayed over 30 days, and the $10,000 are already paid, and they are paid before the effective date of MAT and stayed during or after the effective date of the MAT. So the total exemption applied to this particular example is $35,000. So $215,000 is a net rooms revenue minus the MAT exemption, and 4% calculated on $215,000 is $8,600. So this is a MAT due. Again, this particular form is the summary at the end of the month after each month end. So typically, day by day, this data is collected by the front office reservation and property management system. So therefore, after the month end, this data is readily available to you as each hotel, in my experience, balance the day at the end of each night. And this $86,000, sorry, $8,600 is remitted to ORHMA on behalf of the City of Stratford. We will be collecting this from each facilities, accommodators in the City of Stratford. And the following month, we will remit the data plus the amount to the city directly in electronic fashion. So at this time, I would like to open the floor for any questions, comments.
Thanks, Sanju. Maybe what I'll get, Chris, if you don't mind, we'll read the questions out from the Q&A feature, and then if there's any other questions that come up as a result of that, we can certainly answer those.
Perfect. So I've got a couple questions here so far. The first one, just a comment from Stratford Innkeepers. Says we have gathered 28 people representing 23 hotels, B&Bs, and motels. I will be presenting our collective questions. So the first question coming from Stratford Innkeepers, is it correct that any visitors arriving after July 1 can pay in full in advance and not pay the MAT?
I can take that one. Yes, that is absolutely correct. If the stay is paid in full prior to July 1st and the implementation of the MAT, then it's not exempt from the MAT. But I will refer you back to the demonstration that Sanju had indicated, where you still would be required to report those stays and the value of those room rentals, and then they would just come off of part of your totals. Okay.
Next question coming from Laura Pogson asks, how will the amount of 4% be decided among nonprofit entities?
I'm not totally sure that I understand the question. The 4% tax was set by or decided upon by council, so I'm not sure if this relates to any particular example. This might be a good time when we maybe would want a clarification of the question.
Okay, we can wait and see if Laura provides anything additional.
Okay.
So we'll move on to the next question. This is from Stratford Innkeepers. It reads, how will we be compensated for the cost of gathering this tax? Our costs include paying MAT on CC fees, accountant/bookkeeper fees, bank charges, and our time explaining to the guests, as well as accounting for submissions.
Okay, I'll take a stab at this, and then I may get Zach to pop in on this one too. But the city's implementation of this tax does not allow for any compensation of the costs. However, I will say that we are working on preparing some like a bit of a brochure or a bit of a document to explain to the guests, as well as how the MAT was arrived at and what the purpose of the MAT is for. So that should assist you in terms of explaining it to guests. But as far as the costs themselves, that is not something that that the city is required or is certainly has anything in place for at this time. Zach, I don't know if you've got anything that you can add with respect to the brochure or the communication. We haven't really talked about this in great depth, but.
Sure, thank you. So we do maintain a page at visitstratford.ca/MAT. Right now it's informational about this stage of it, but we will absolutely be keeping that up to date, and we'll more than likely make a visitor related page for it where we can disseminate information. In conversations with other destinations, I'm not familiar of examples where there's additional costs of the collection that are covered, but there may be. I haven't talked to all of them. So yes, communications, and we'll work closely with the city to make sure that that's aligned, and to make sure that visitors are aware that there is an MAT as part of our destination.
Okay, thanks, Zach.
So moving on to the next question, it comes from Stratford Innkeepers, and it reads, how are stays tracked? Please explain what we are legally required to turn over, bank account, tax return.
Okay, I think this relates to the requirement that the city may ask for additional information or backup information from accommodators to audit the process. As far as legally required to turn over, you know, okay, let me back up. I'll start with how our stays tracked. That really is dependent on the accommodator. Some of them will track them in a computer system. Some of them may track them manually. Some of them may have different types of record keeping structures. So it just depends on the individual. We're not suggesting that it needs to be in any specific format. But what we may ask for is information to confirm the reported stays and the reported revenues collected. What that looks like exactly is probably a little bit more on your day-to-day record keeping, but I think that's just something that we will determine based on the accommodators' records that they keep. So I hope that answered the question.
Next question comes from Daryl Thompson and reads, does the room revenue include GST, HST?
Good question. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
If I may, the form that I presented earlier, those are net rooms revenue. HST are kept separately. The amount that you submit to ORHMA and to the city are the net 4% of MAT only, pure MAT. Any HST collected is remitted directly to CRA from the source.
Right, and I think though that the calculation of the 4% is based on the stay that includes HST. Can you confirm that, Sanju? That's what it was my understanding before today. So, using the Excel example that is there, that the room revenue includes HST.
I want to bring another example. So if you bear with me, let me open up another document with the taxes. So this is typically the example of a MAT and HST calculation. I'm using a room rate of $100 for this example. On the left column, let's walk it through. If the room charge is $100, MAT is 4% of the 100, which is $4. The net total room and the MAT is 104, and the HST is applied to the net total. So 13% of the net total is $13.52, comes to $117.52. So in essence, there is HST applied to the 4% MAT as well. And let me explain why that is. MAT is a creation of a province legislation, and any levy taxes charged by the province is also HST-able based on the current CRA legislation regulations. So on the form that I presented earlier, it's the room's revenue. The $100 is what we are looking for on the other form. HST is taken out of that. Now, the second column here, let me explain it. If any hotels or facilities providing an all-inclusive rate to a guest, if you quote $100, taxes included, then when you work backwards, the room rate will be $85.09 on your property management system, with a MAT of $3.40, comes to a net total $88.50, then 13% HST on it, $11.50, comes to $100. So in this case, $3.40 is reported to MAT return, and $11.50 is returned to HST return. So that's how the taxes is calculated on the MAT. I'll be happy to take any questions on this one.
Okay, well, Carmen, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was just going to suggest we move to the next one. And if there's something that's not clear when we're going through this, we can absolutely open it up at the end there.
Yeah. So the next question comes from Stratford Innkeepers and reads, is there a minimum/maximum of ancillary charges that can be backed out of?
So typically the ancillary charges refer to those things that are like extra. So typically their parking, might be breakfast, it might be other types of things. I don't know that there's necessarily a list or a maximum or anything like that, but certainly things that would typically come with a room would not be backed out. Like, for example, a television in the room or something like that, things that aren't separatable. So that answers that. The next question, I'll jump into that, but do ancillary charges have to be itemized? No, that's not something that's required in the reporting that comes through for the remittance of the MAT. It could be a question, I suppose, through the audit process if that does come up, but we're not expecting, I'll say, a lot of volume for the audit process at the very beginning while everyone gets their feet wet and figures out how this goes. So, but it does remain part of the bylaw enforcement part.
Thanks, Carmen. So next question comes from Stratford Innkeepers and reads, what specifically will the penalty be if an STRA doesn't collect or remit?
Well, I guess that ultimately if they're governed through the short-term licensing bylaw or another type of business operational bylaw, such as the B&B licensing, there could be an outcome where a license isn't renewed. But the penalty for not remitting, but where it was reported, so if the information's available but the remittance, it doesn't happen, the penalty is outlined in the bylaw. And that's, I would just reference you to the bylaw for the calculation for that.
Next question is again from Stratford Innkeepers, and it reads, where is the city on the licensing and tracking of STRAs? The concern being that the licensed B&Bs, hotels, and motels are and have been compliant, but the STRAs are not even.
I might actually defer this one if I could to the chief building official. As far as the tracking piece goes, I know that the licensing piece is still, we're trying to go through the implementation period at this time. So maybe I'll turn it over to Jonathan if you have any comments on that particular question.
For sure. Thanks, Carmen. Yeah, so the just to follow up on it, the short-term rental bylaw is in effect as of January 1st. We are currently working with short-term operators right now to get their licenses in place. There's a number of them underway, and they will be effective as of April 1st as per the bylaw. So we're working away towards that right now. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to sort of recognize that we understand that that's a concern, that the existing licensed B&Bs and hotels and motels that are already on board does represent a bit of a, I'll say a bit of a gap, which is the reason why this short-term licensing bylaw was implemented in the first place, was to try to ensure that the city had a mechanism in order to track this sort of stuff. But I will also say that this will be a bit of it will take us a bit of time to make sure that we've got everything and everyone on board with it. So just if there's any specific questions or specific concerns, then we ask you to raise them for us through the process too. So, okay.
Next question, again from Stratford Innkeepers, and it reads, please explain the accounting process when rooms are booked through booking sites that are commissioned. For instance, the mat will be paid at source, and then we pay up to 30% commissions. How can that be accounted for?
I'm not sure, Sanju, if you're familiar with this structure. I am not, so I don't know exactly how the accounting would work on the accommodator site.
Yeah, every brands or every operators have their own system how to handle that. So typically some booking sites takes the 30% of the room's revenue off. If that is the case, that is tracked. However, the information coming into the property, everyone handles it on their own. I'm not directly involved with it, but the 4% charged on the mat or on the room's accommodation is what we work with. So depending on your property management system, there might be a way to do that. And I know Stratford may not have the typical brands that I'm working with, but my recommendation is if you are with a brand, please consult with your brand support system. They can recommend those information to you, how the best practices that's already in place in other jurisdictions. I'm not on a day in, day out work with those aspects of it, but I know that there are best practices out there that other hotels are following at this time.
Thanks, Sanju. And just a little bit further on that too, like we're happy to work with specific accommodators if there's specific issues, but also any financial advisors or accounting professionals that you might use will also be able to help you with that. So you know, let us help you if you certainly if you have specific situation, then we can try to help guide you through that. The accounting piece is not something that the city is necessarily involved with for each accommodator, so it will vary by accommodator.
Next question, again from Stratford Innkeepers. It reads, STRA are taking bookings and Airbnb takes full payment now, but the operator doesn't receive the funds until after check-in.
So I don't know if I've captured this correctly, but I don't know if this is a July 1st question, but if it's relating to the nature of the timing of funds that the operator receives the funds versus July 1st when the bylaw takes effect. The stay is based on, or the reporting is based on when the individual stays in the accommodator's accommodation. So I'm not sure if I captured that correctly. I'm sorry. If you need to re-articulate your question, please feel free to do that.
Next question comes from Laura Pogson, and it reads, how are checks collected and to whom are they written?
If I may answer that question, the checks payable to Ontario Restaurant Hotel Motel Association, or ORHMA, and we do accept, of course, the Canada Post and the checks. Plus, we can provide you a specific account coordinates to those companies who would like to pay via EFT, electronic fund transfer, or we could even accept a debit into RAC. So those are the three forms, and all the monies are payable to Ontario Restaurant Hotel Motel Association, and we have a dedicated account for each jurisdictions. Then we clear it at the end of the month and provide that back to the state.
Thanks, Andrew.
So next question coming from Stratford Innkeepers. It reads, has a flat rate been considered given all of the accounting hurdles in May? I don't know if there's a part missing there, but.
So a flat rate, I don't believe was considered through the process. I believe that the most commonly applied method is to use the percentage method. So that was what was presented initially to council couple of years ago, and then again last fall. So that's in order to, if that was something that council did want to consider, we would go through the process yet again. So yeah.
Okay, the next question I believe was addressed during the HST question, but if there is any other clarification required, please let us know. We have a comment from Stratford Innkeepers just in regards to addressing remaining accounting questions that they've submitted. Going to the next comment from Stratford Innkeepers, ancillary charges include parking, breakfast, Wi-Fi. It is in the legislation.
Yeah.
Next question from Stratford Innkeepers. How many B&B and STRAs are currently licensed?
So I can jump in right now. Council did extend the bed and breakfast licenses until March 31st. So we have, I believe it's 41 or 42 licensed bed and breakfasts at this time. And at this time, there are 0 short-term rental accommodations, as they won't be in effect until April 1st.
Next question coming from Stratford Innkeepers. Is there a reporting phone line for STRAs?
If I can jump in, I'm not sure if that's referring to reporting monthly activity by telephone. If that's the case, Sanju, I don't know if that's something that people can do.
For those locations who need additional help, if they are not able to report via online portal, then we can provide a PDF form for emailing. If that doesn't work, we can talk them through, yes. But the question, was the question regarding reporting the MAT numbers, or is it reporting to the city in terms of unauthorized short-term rentals? I was thinking the question may be on the other side.
Yeah, the question was just written as is there a reporting line? So I suppose if your answer there doesn't clarify, then perhaps they can address that in a new question.
Please.
Okay, so moving on to the next question from Stratford Innkeepers. So can the MAT on commissions be added to ancillary fees then?
I believe the answer to that is no. The MAT applies to the accommodation stay value to the person staying. So the commissions become a part of the accommodator's costs at that point, is how I understand it. I don't know, Sanju, if you've run across this and you can comment further.
Yeah, you're correct, Carmen.
Okay.
The MAT is applied to the room charge, and commission is considered as part of cost of doing business.
The next question from Stratford Innkeepers reads, follow-up questions. It is the day in and day out that we are dealing with now. Rooms are already booked for the full year and guests are asking for clarity.
So if there is anything that isn't clear at this point, please do feel free to ask. I think as far as the guests that stay after July 1st, the MAT will apply on the full balance of the cost of the stay to the guest unless they have paid in full prior to July 1st. So sometimes I know accommodators will take deposits, or they'll have like they'll hold the room for a fee or whatever, and then apply that fee to the value of the hotel stay. So that's hopefully that's been clearly identified for the accommodators here.
So next, coming from Stratford Innkeepers, this reads, follow-up to STRA answer. The Airbnb guests pay in advance for July 2 onward stays, but we do not record the revenue until they have arrived. This is a gap in the direction that must be clarified. We need to know if we are charging today.
Okay, so if the guest pays in full prior to July 1st for stays after July 1st, then the MAT is not required to be collected, but the data on the stay and the value of the room will be required to be reported in the month of July or August or whenever it is. So I hope that helps clear that up.
Next question from Stratford Innkeepers reads, what percentage of the collections does ORHMA receive?
ORHMA and the City of Stratford enter into an agreement to provide the service that they are providing. So that agreement is outside of the MAT collection specifically. So we don't have anything that we can provide at this time, but certainly once we get further along in the process, we may have additional information on the exact values at that point.
Next question from Stratford Innkeepers. Just confirming 41 and 0 STRA is what was heard. I believe those were the numbers. Jonathan, can you confirm?
Yes, it's either 41 or 42. I don't have the numbers right in front of me today.
Okay, thanks. All right, next question from Stratford Innkeepers. The city bylaw should have a reporting line, not OMHRA. No?
I'm not sure I understand the question. The city bylaw doesn't have reporting lines, so I'm not sure what that exactly means. I don't know if you can take another stab at that one, or we can again address that one towards the end of the call if there's clarity required.
Carmen, that could be in reference to the to a complaints. We do have a form for bylaw complaints, which an illegally operating STR would be. There's also a form which is more convenient that you can fill out on the city's webpage under municipal bylaw enforcement, and that form is probably the best way to fill it out so that we get the information. Okay,
so information relating to data reporting, do you mean?
I think if the question is around illegally operating bed and breakfasts or short-term rentals, that would be the venue to report those.
Okay, oh, that's perfect. Thank you.
Next question from Stratford Innkeepers reads, will the MAT be held in a reserve fund?
Yes, that's an easy answer. As directed by council, the MAT will be, so once the city receives the revenues, like all of the revenues, then we will deposit those into a reserve fund. That information will be retained until council directs any spending from that fund, but also coming from that revenue will be the fund will be reduced accordingly by any administration costs, which typically at this point are limited to the agreement that we have with ORHMA for administrating the bylaw. And then we would look at dispersing 50% of those net proceeds to Destination Stratford as required under the legislation. And then the remaining balance, the net of the 50% balance would be what's remained in Stratford's reserve.
So the next two from Stratford Innkeepers comments. One just asking for question responses when providing the response, just to try and speak up a little bit. And then the next comment reads, "Nothing is clear," says the group. The next question from Stratford Innkeepers reads, "Are tips MAT applicable?"
No.
Next from Stratford Innkeepers, "Can we have an in-person meeting, please? This hasn't clarified our granular questions."
Okay. Let me get back to you on that one. Well, maybe I can reach out to you after the meeting to try to see what it is specifically that you're looking for that we're not able to answer.
Next from Stratford Innkeepers reads, "Was that an in-camera meeting where the payment for OMHRA?"
No, it wasn't. There was not an in-camera meeting about this particular issue. The staff report and the council direction was that staff were to be directed to enter into the agreement with ORHMA, and that is still pending at this time.
Next from Stratford Innkeepers reads, "Bylaw is responsible for licensing STRA. How can we help them?"
Jonathan.
I would say the best way to help is to use that online form if you're aware of bad actors that are operating outside of a license, so we can get them licensed. We're planning to do education, which we're very shortly going to be rolling out through the community, and as part of that, yeah, we want to get them licensed. There is no fees for 2023, so the fee shouldn't be holding anybody back at this point, but the biggest thing is we want to get these things licensed and safe.
So next from Stratford Innkeepers, just a comment reading, "Thanks, Jonathan, for clarifying STRA reporting." Next question from Stratford Innkeepers reads, "Does any other industry collect a tax that goes directly to the city?"
Not to my knowledge. I don't know if anybody else on the call can speak to that, but I am not aware of outside of accommodation whether there's any other industry.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question then. So next question from Stratford Innkeepers reads, "So we can find the documents about how ORHMA are paid. Will that be public?"
Yeah, it will be public information at some point. We just have not finalized the agreements that we'll be entering into with ORHMA, and they're just not shareable at this point.
And a last question at this time from Stratford Innkeepers reads, "Are the licenses going to be complaint driven or is it proactive?"
At this point, it is complaint driven. We have not been directed by council to be proactive in this manner at this point.
One additional question, also from Stratford Innkeepers reads, "Will we have input into how it is spent?"
Do you mean, I'm assuming that means the reserve fund of the monies that is going to be collected? Certainly residents and of all sort of types and with all sorts of revenues have the ability to provide input. Explicitly, council's direction will be on how to disperse those MAT funds. And there is some legislative compliance requirements that the funds be for specific or general activities around tourism. But if that's an area that residents or accommodators want to get involved in, then I'm sure that approaching council members to express yourself would be appropriate.
So next question from Stratford Innkeepers, when they say value of stay, do they mean the gross? I think they meant to say it was gross or the room rate.
So I think Sanju touched on this earlier, but it's the net room revenue. So again, net of the
HST.
The HST, thank you. And net of any ancillary costs. It's the accommodation cost that you're collecting the MAT on.
One additional comment from Stratford Innkeepers. We have asked to get involved on various occasions. We would like to have input and be able to support DS.
So I maybe misunderstood the question earlier about the input into how the funds are spent. I was assuming that you were asking about the city's component, but perhaps not. So I don't know if that's something that Zach can comment on. I do know that the board of directors for Destination Stratford will be obviously, making determinations on the spending of that section of funding. But Zach, did you want to comment any further on that?
Sure. So you're right. The board will review this as it comes in as per the arrangement via the council approved bylaw and how it rolls out. None of this will be up for discussion until 2024, which is when the funds will arrive and be dispersed. And between now and then, I think there will be lots of opportunity for discussion. And certainly it's up to council ultimately in terms of how those funds are directed. I will say that in terms of tourism infrastructure projects, we also plan on Destination Stratford side to work very closely with the city and try to leverage provincial and federal granting opportunities to make the most of future MAT and to bring that to council for consideration.
Okay. Does anybody, so it looks like we're at the end of the questions at the moment, and I'm not sure if any further ones will trickle in as I continue on, but I don't see any raised hands. So is there anybody in the group that would like to speak out loud that we did not address the question clearly, or that we need to accommodate for not being able to type into the, the chat box? Okay. I don't see anything further, but as I've said before, and I continue to say, I know that all of us here are able and willing and looking to help you with this implementation. So please do reach out if you have any questions at all. You will receive some further information in terms of the registration and the getting into the site for the Ontario Restaurant Hotel Motel Association. Sanju, can you talk about that again a little bit further?
I will work with Carmen to provide certain documentations that you can actually share with your online travel agents. For example, an OTA letter. A letter will be authorized, written from the city and issued to all the accommodators. I'll work with the Carmen in the next 2 weeks to develop that. So perhaps we can share that with you early in advance, so you can provide that letter to all your online travel agents, Booking.com or your brand locations, so they can set up the tax table correctly. So for all the future reservations, so they reflect the MAT appropriately. So by the time the reservation hits your books, they are ready to go appropriately. Now, another piece of communication we can provide you is a poster that you can post it on your website or at your front office, or any means of communication that you use. It's just a public notice showing that starting this day, a MAT will be charged on all stays, and this is under action based on the bylaw number such and such. So those two documents, I'll work with Carmen to have them issued to you at the earliest possible opportunity. So that will create another level of communication available to you and to all the your online travel agents. And you can use that communication to all the reservations or contracts, reservations, weddings, any events, any communications that you have with them. You can use those documents to communicate with all of them. So that will make the communication much easier. Thank you.
Thanks, Sanju. And again, I just want to say thank you to all of our accommodators and any guests that attended today. I do appreciate the questions, and we do want to try to help them make this smooth and easy for you. So please do reach out if you do need any further assistance. And I'd like to say thanks to all of our representatives here today from the city and from Destination Stratford as well. Thank you for being here to help answer the questions. And if there's nothing further, I think we'll wrap this up, and this will be posted on our website for anyone else to view if there's any value to that. So thank you.